In this video, we are going to be giving a high-level overview of HarvestCloud by Grevera. HarvestCloud is an innovative cultivation management platform designed to help cannabis growers, both small and large, simplify their operations, increase consistency, and discover new ways to enhance yields. We're going to show you how to get started in HarvestCloud and also some of the more powerful features that help you optimize your grow operations. First, we're going to show you how to create a premise. A premise is any physical location where you may be growing plants. Then we'll show you how to configure your grow style and customize it for your workflows. Next, we'll show you how to create a workflow template. Workflow templates are an innovative and unique feature of HarvestCloud. They allow you to create reusable templates that you can then optimize over time to increase yields. We're going to show you how to manage users. Then we're going to schedule a workflow. And finally, we'll show you how to do some of the basic task management within the system. So let's get started. When you first log in to HarvestCloud, you will be taken to the home screen. From here, you are going to want to open the navigation menu. That's where you can access each of the different sections within the application. As you can see, the menu is grouped along those logical sections. We're going to scroll down to the premise management section and go ahead and click premises. When we get to that page, you're going to see at the bottom a create button, and that pattern is going to be repeated throughout the application. Let's go ahead and click create. This is going to take us to the premise creator page, where we can give a premise a name and assign it a time zone. We're going to go ahead and name this premise East Warehouse. Then let's select a time zone. How about Phoenix? Time zones are going to come in handy when we schedule workflow templates. And that's it. We created our first premise. Now let's get started customizing your grow style. When it comes to customizing your grow style, there's two things that we need to do. One, we need to create new lifecycle stages. And two, we need to create task types. We'll talk about each in turn, but first, let's start with lifecycle stages. Lifecycle stages represent a stage in the overall plant's development. You can customize lifecycle stages to match your grow style. And just as before, we are going to navigate using the navigation menu. We're going to scroll to the grow style management section of the menu and click on lifecycle stages. For the purposes of this overview, I am going to create 4 lifecycle stages: veg, flower, drying, and processing. I will show you how to create the first one, and then I will skip ahead and show all 4. Let's get started with veg. Just like premises, there is a create button below. Let's click create, and we will be given a pop-up so that we can input information about the lifecycle stage. We actually just need to give it a name. Let's call this one veg, then click create. I will go ahead and fast forward after creating the rest. There we have it. All 4 lifecycle stages have been created. Let's continue customizing our grow style by adding task types. So let's jump over to the task types screen using our navigation menu. There are 2 categories of tasks: resolving and non-resolving. A resolving task is a task that marks the end of a stage. For instance, a move task may represent the end of the veg stage. A task of harvest might represent the end of the flower stage. Non-resolving tasks are just normal tasks that you may do day in and day out, like water. We are going to create 4 resolving task types and 4 standard task types. You can create as many as you need for your grow style. I'll create the first one, then fast forward and create the rest. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's click create. For task types, there are 2 properties: name and whether or not it's resolving. This one's going to be called move, and it's going to be a resolving task, so I'll go ahead and mark that. Then click create, and there it is. It's our first task type. Let's go ahead and jump ahead. Okay, now we're all set. We got all our resolving task types and all our non-resolving task types. It's time to start creating a workflow. Let's do that next. Workflow templates are the centerpiece of HarvestCloud. You can think of a workflow template as a recipe for growing a plant over time. Then, as you learn, you can make modifications to that recipe and use that historical data to optimize your yields. When creating a workflow template, we will use the lifecycle stages that we created earlier in the video. And as you may have guessed, we will start by opening the navigation menu and clicking on Workflow Management. This will take us to the Workflow Management screen, where we can create a new template. On the Workflow Template Editor screen, there are going to be 4 sections: General, Stages, Tasks, and Review. General is where you will give your workflow a name and add tags if you wish. A tag is sort of like metadata about your workflow. For instance, it could be a strain variation or something else. We'll see tags again when we schedule workflows, but for now, just know that you can put whatever information that is useful to you. We're going to call this one ice cream cake after the strain type. Then we will give it 2 tags, set 1 and ice cream strain. Next, we're going to jump over to the stages section. Okay, now that we've given our workflow a name and added some tags, we're going to go ahead and go to the stages section. And we'll do that by clicking here at the bottom where it says stages. Now the stages section is where you define each stage in the template and how many days the plant will be in each stage. You also specify the resolving task for each stage. One point of note is the stages will be in chronological order stacked from top to bottom. So the first stage will always be at the top and the last stage will always be at the bottom. We're going to create for this demo a workflow with each of the 4 stages that we created before. That's veg, flower, drying, and processing. We're going to create the first 2 together, that's flower and veg, and then we'll fast forward and jump ahead to the tasks section. So first, I'm just going to click Add Stage. We'll bring up the Add Stage dialog, and here you're going to need to specify 3 things: the stage type, the number of days the plant will be in the stage, and the resolving task for the stage. So I'm going to create veg, and then I'm going to specify 100 days for that. Then I'm going to go ahead and select the resolving task type as move and click add. As you can see, we have a veg stage now with 100 days. And the resolving task is on the last day. Next, let's create the flower stage. This one will have 58 days, and we're going to specify the resolving task of harvest. I'll go ahead and skip ahead and create the remaining ones. So I'll meet you on the other side. Cool. Now we have each of our stages configured. Let's move on to tasks. On the tasks section, you are in effect configuring a blueprint of a schedule for your workflow. For instance, you might have a bend task that you think needs to happen on certain days in the workflow, or a water task that needs to happen every 3 days. But as the workflow progresses, you can adjust this. To get started, select the task type that you want to plan out. For instance, we're going to start with the bend task type. Then you can expand one of the stages, in this case veg, and add bend on each of the days. In this case, day 3, 8, and 13. Then I can switch to another task type. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the steak task type. And I'm going to add that to the flower stage on day 3, 4, and 8. This is just an example. You could have any different combination or configurations that you want. And then here on the drying stage, you can see there is a resolving task on the last day. All stages have a resolving task. And the resolving task, it basically means when that task is marked as complete, then that stage is considered done. The next concept we're going to talk through is task chains. And we're going to use the example of the water task to explain some of those concepts. Sometimes tasks are correlated with one another, meaning if one is completed, it will determine when the next one is completed. For example, let's think about watering. A watering task will be dependent on when the previous watering task was completed, so that you don't overwater or underwater. So imagine I have a watering task or several watering tasks, and I push or snooze that task by 1 day, meaning it was scheduled to be done today, but I'm going to do it tomorrow instead. Then we need to be able to push out all the future watering tasks so that we don't overwater the plants. HarvestCloud helps to solve this through a concept known as task chains. Task chains are a series of tasks that are linked together like a chain. So if you snooze a chain task by 1 day, then all future tasks in that chain will also be snoozed by 1 day. Similarly, if you move a chain task back a day, all future tasks in that chain will be moved back by 1 day. Let's show you how that works. You can technically chain any non-resolving task type, though for our purposes, we're going to demonstrate using the water task. So step 1 is just to change your task type to water. Then toggle the task chain toggle button here. This will bring up the task chain editor, where you can specify which stages you want to have the task chain on, a population interval, and a few other things. In this case, we're going to go ahead and just select veg and flower. Additionally, you can configure the population interval, and this value will determine how to schedule the tasks. So, for instance, right now it's set to every 3 days, which means if we left it at that, it would schedule the task every 3rd day. But we're going to change it to every 2 days, starting on day 1. Then we just click Add Task Chain, and as you can see here, there is a water task on the schedule for every 2 days. Now, we can remove individual tasks from the chain if we choose to, but we're going to leave it for now. The final piece of the task chain puzzle is something known as the default interval. The default interval specifies how the chain will behave when days are added to stages or workflows. When you indicate a default interval, you are specifying how the chain should behave when days are added. So when a day is added and you have a default interval, the tasks will automatically be added according to this interval. For example, I'm going to go ahead and leave this interval on every 3 days. Then I'm going to switch back to the stages section, and I'm going to add 2 days to the veg stage. As you can see, a water task is going to be added to the final day, the 102nd day of the stage. That's the 3rd day from the last watering task. That's it for task chains. The only thing left for us to do is review our work. So let's go ahead and go over to the review section by clicking the review button on the bottom. On the review section, you can see a high-level timeline overview of all the stages and all the tasks. You'll notice the visual indicator for chained tasks. You can also easily navigate between stages. Then you will scroll all the way to the bottom and click Save. Awesome. You've created a reusable workflow template. We can now schedule this workflow template, but first we need to talk about user management, which is where we go next. Let's head over to the user management page by navigating through the menu. On the user management page, you will see all of the users that you have permission to see. Right now I'm logged in as an org administrator, which means I can see and edit all users. I can edit existing users, or I can create new users. I'm going to create a new user. On the new user page, I can give my user a name and specify their email. They'll use that email to sign up later. Then I'll switch over to the permission section. In the permission section, you can assign users to premises, update roles, and qualify a user for certain task types. I'm going to go ahead and assign this user to the premise that we created before, East Warehouse. You can assign a user to one of 4 roles: a premise administrator, a premise manager, or a premise user. And then finally, you can make them an org administrator, which means they have pretty much permissions to do anything within the system. Each of the roles has a different permission set, which we document elsewhere. For now, I will just make this person a user, which basically means that they can complete tasks they are qualified for. If you aren't qualified for a task, you won't be able to complete it or be assigned to it. I'm going to qualify this user for bend, stake, and water. In addition to qualifications, I can indicate whether a user is set to be auto-assigned. You'll see this feature at work when we start to schedule workflows, and that's where we're going to go next. Now that we've taken care of some of the other items, like configuring our grow style, creating a workflow template, and adding users, now we can get into how do we schedule our workflow. To do this, we navigate to the workflow management screen. Then we see the workflow that we created earlier, and we open that up and click on Schedule. Now that is going to open up the Schedule Workflow dialog. And here we can specify which premise we want to schedule the workflow for and for what date. We can schedule the workflow for any date, including dates in the past and in the future. Scheduling in the past is useful if you already have a set that's in progress and you want to add it to HarvestCloud. When you do that, all the tasks on the previous days will automatically be marked as completed. For now, I'm just going to schedule it for today, which is the 19th. Once it's scheduled, I will be taken to the Scheduled Workflows page, where I can see all the currently scheduled workflows. And on each scheduled workflow, I can see what the current lifecycle stage is, in this case, veg, what the current day of the current stage is, in this case, it's day 1, and what the total number of days in that stage are, which is 102. We can also see what premise it's scheduled at, and above there's actually some filters on that, but we'll touch on those in a different video. As time elapses and work is completed, you can get a real-time snapshot of where all of your scheduled workflows are at any given time. This is helpful if you want to know when an upcoming harvest will be ready. And now that we got scheduled workflows, we can see the tasks and all the other work associated with it by reviewing the task board, which you can get to by using the navigation menu. By default, on the task board, you can see all of the work for which you are qualified for today. You can also see work according to a date range. I'm going to go ahead and select the date range and see all the work that we currently have from this workflow. You'll also notice that these tasks already have an assignee, and that's because we used the auto assign feature when we created a new user that ensured that when these workflows were scheduled, any incomplete tasks would automatically be assigned to those users. There are many other things that we can do with tasks, and we're going to talk about that in the next section, so let's do that now. The main place to manage work is on the task board. This shows all of the work you are qualified for and filters that work based on a date range. By default, the selected date is today. We have selected a date range and can see all of the tasks in that range, at least all of the ones that we're qualified for. There are 5 main actions you can take on the task board. You can filter the task board, you can assign users to tasks, you can complete tasks, you can move tasks back in time, or you can move tasks forward in time, an action we refer to as snoozing. We will consider each in turn. So first, let's filter according to one of the several criteria. Let's look at task types. We can filter based on task types, and in this case, we're going to select water. By selecting water, we will only see the water tasks on the board. It's important to note that filters are additive, which means they get more restrictive as you add more filters. Next, I can assign tasks to qualified users. I can also move tasks back in time by clicking the Move Action button on the left-hand side of the card. I will be prompted with a dialog to specify the number of days. Next, I can also have move a task forward in time, or snooze it, by clicking on the Snooze Action button on the right. Just like move, I must specify some number of days. Finally, the complete action is done by the center button and will remove the task from the board. Completion can only be done by org admins or individuals who are qualified for that task. I'm an org admin, so I'm going to assign it to myself and complete it. And that's it. You now have a good understanding of HarvestCloud. So thanks for taking the time to review our product, and now it's time to get growing. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions. You can contact us at info@grevera.com. Thanks for your time.